If you're a projector in human design, you've probably felt frustrated by content advice that is very obviously designed for a generator. Advice that tells you to post every day or always be creating. You're designed to be really selective with your energy, but you're also here to really pierce through and see what other people miss. You're here for your expertise. And this is so different to the sacral building energy of generators and manifesting generators. Because remember, as a projector, you do not have a defined sacral. There isn't that consistent access to life force and creativity. You're designed to rest before you actually feel tired. But what you do have is a penetrating aura that really allows you to see what other people miss. And your content strategy should really be leveraging that. So today we're talking about content creation for projectors and specifically how to create the conditions that support your ability to share that expertise and to share your insights consistently and to a high standard, I guess, but without burning you out. Before we dive into the projector specific approach, I want to share how I think about content creation for all types. So, content success really comes down to having a main message that you repeat over and over. So, for example, in my business, that message is your business can feel like an exhale. So, you can create a business that loves you back, that has reciprocity that exists. You can put all this effort into your business, but you at the same time feel like it is respecting you and loving you in return. And so no matter what specific piece of content I'm creating, whether that is on human design or astrology or business strategy or mindset, that same core message of a business that loves you back, richness without sacrifice is woven through everything. So within that main message, you can then explore different themes. So as I mentioned, for me, that might be human design sales strategies. It could be business foundations. It could be nervous system work, but it all connects back to that central theme and message of creating a business that loves you back. You can also look at your profile lines in human design to get a little bit more specific about the type of content you're creating. But today we're going to keep it really simple. What I want you to focus on today is the actual conditions that are going to help you continue to be devoted to sharing that main message and that main theme in a way that is sustainable for you. And I kind of break up content into two different areas. There is the actual process of content creation, and there's the actual content that you are creating. What we are talking about in today's episode is the process of content creation, because if we don't nail that, if we don't create a process that feels supportive for you, that you can maintain and sustain, then it doesn't really matter if you feel really clear on the type of content you're creating, because you'll probably experience burnout. You'll feel tired. You'll lack creativity. So we really want to start there of like, what is the actual process of creativity, the process of content creation? Because the real challenge for you isn't necessarily knowing what to say. Like, you have so many things to say because you see things that we all don't see, but it is about creating those, I guess, conditions to consistently share that message without depleting your energy as a projector. So let's talk about those conditions that support sustainable content creation for you as a projector. So first, your content creation process actually starts with giving yourself permission to study and to observe. This is so important. You need dedicated time for deep study of your areas of expertise, right? Like, that is your unique selling point in your business, no matter what it is that you are selling, no matter what kind of service provider you are. Your differentiation in the marketplace is your ability to see things that we don't see, right? It's your ability to really utilize that penetrating aura and recognize and see gaps and patterns that people are missing, So it really starts with you cultivating the skill set to be able to do that, but also the confidence to be able to share the things that people are missing, right? Like, if you're sharing the things that people are missing, you're probably saying things that other people aren't saying. And so if you're not feeling confident in your expertise, that's going to be a lot harder for you to do. So you could, for example, keep a journal to start I guess, documenting those patterns and the insights and the observations that you are noticing and you are making. And you can kind of build out this personal library of research, of case studies, of observations. This study phase is where your content creation process really begins, because as I mentioned, that natural gift for deep observation, for pattern recognition, really needs this foundation to not only create really valuable content, but for you to feel confident to identify and speak out the things that people are missing. Secondly, focus on depth over frequency. I know that there is a lot of advice out there about quantity over quality, right? Like, post enough times and you will like cast your net wide enough and you'll catch, some fish in that net, right? And I think there are periods in our business where that is a really good thing to be doing. I think when we're really testing our creativity and learning about ourselves and learning about our expression and the way that we want to deliver our message, I think it's a really important thing to test different things and to maybe increase the volume, right? Increase the quality as you are figuring that out. But overall, your strategy and your approach is one of depth. You don't need to post every day. Instead, you can do things like creating content in batches when your energy is high, and kind of build up a content bank for your business to have that consistent presence without you as a human needing to have that consistent presence and that constant output. Your superpower is penetrating insights into systems and people and gaps and inefficiencies. And so one deeply valuable post where you're really identifying and sitting with the nuance of something is going to work for you for far longer than daily surface level content. And I think we're really starting to see this shift already. I think we've definitely been in the past couple of years of really, quick pace content. We saw the increase in reels and, things like short form content being added to, YouTube, which has traditionally been a long form content platform. And I also think that we're making a move back. I think that we are moving into an era where we want to have that nuance, right? We don't want to have just these polar opposite, these, extreme opinions. Like, we want to really sit with a topic and read something and be connected to someone's story as part of that as well. And so I think that you're really well positioned for this shift as well. And this is something that we talked about in the episode about Projector sales strategies as well, that content is just one part of your overall sales ecosystem. So if you haven't watched that episode yet about the bigger sort of Projector sales ecosystem and creating a pathway for you to receive that recognition and invitation more organically, so you're not needing to step outside of your design in order to find clients, please make sure that you go and watch that episode. Okay, the third part of this content ecosystem is creating systems that work with your energy, not against it, right? And that work with that penetrating aura, right? So your aura is naturally focusing deeply on whatever you are studying, right? So use this to your advantage. When you are researching something that excites you, capture those insights immediately. Like, set up a system that works for you. Maybe it is, setting up an AI project that is simply there for you to kind of brain dump the information, right? So brain dump the insights, that you can speak out, or even just having some kind of voice memo approach, or maybe it's a Google document if you prefer to write, but creating an actual, bringing some, devotion and reverence and connection to that study phase. That is the most important part of your experience as a projector, is that space that you are creating for study, for, learning new things, for developing your expertise. So make it a process, right? Set up a system around that. What is going to support you to really be able to take full advantage of that and to really sink into that experience, right? So voice noting ideas as you're processing a running Google document, as I mentioned, for the different patterns that you're noticing, the things that you are studying. You might have screenshot folders for testimonials, for client results, things like that. Just really thinking about how you are going to be capturing your insights so that when you have those aha moments, you can really access the insights from that deep study, and you can document them without losing that insight, and kind of like make sure that that process between study and getting that out there is as seamless as possible. You may decide to batch your content creation during those periods when you feel, really like energized, when you feel excited about what you are learning, and then kind of schedule that. It's up to you whether you do that or not. But I think the most important piece that I want to emphasize here is don't force content creation when you're in that study phase. I mean, don't force content creation at all, but really bring a level of devotion and reverence and connection to that study phase, because it really is the start of everything. Like, even as we spoke about in the Projector sales episode and the bigger ecosystem as a projector, like, even your sales process really starts with you developing that expertise, which is in turn going to develop that confidence, right? And we want that ecosystem really working for you, right? So, that whole process of invitations, we want that to happen organically for you, so you're not stepping outside of your design. And then fourth, as I mentioned, really embrace, if it feels aligned for you, content repurposing. I think that we naturally as creators sometimes resist that, right? Because it's like the idea is out there and it's out there, like I'm going to move on to the next thing. And I think that we've created a lot of rules for ourselves where we, it's like an outfit, like how many times we buy something for a like fancy occasion and then we don't wear that dress again because we've already worn it, And I think as I've gotten older, that's something I've embraced a lot more, of like just having a simplified wardrobe of clothes that I wear all the time, and content is no different, like what does it look like for you to turn one long form insight? So maybe you're on Substack or you have a podcast or a blog. What does it look like to create in a long form way and then to turn that into multiple shorter pieces? So you could have, say your sort of main platforms are Instagram and then Substack. You might then have, one long form piece of content on Substack, but then you break that into a couple of pieces of content for Instagram to have that sales ecosystem working for you, right? So to take people from Instagram into Substack. So it could be as simple as you like screenshotting your favorite quotes from a written piece of content, for example, that is on Substack, but then you are creating like having the screenshots on Instagram as an example. You can use AI if that feels aligned to help you expand your observations. So the AI is leveraging, like it's you, right? Like it's your insight, it's your long form piece of content, it's your download, it's you putting all of those, that pattern recognition together, but you're just using a system and embracing like a process where you can automate things a little bit more, right? And you can use something like that to really expand your observations and to create more pieces of content, right? Because you don't, as a human, like you don't need to be consistent. Even for me as a sacral being, as a manifesting generator, like I know that I am wildly inconsistent, right? Like I can't control when my sacral responds, but that doesn't mean that my business doesn't need to be consistent. And I think that that's something that I found quite challenging when I discovered human design, is like, okay, well, the sacral response is inherently inconsistent, but my business suffered for a number of years because it was solely, I really created this meaning that it's like, for me to be in my design, it means that my business is going to be inconsistent, because I started like giving myself this permission to not be consistent, which I think we should be doing as part of our human design experiment, like as part of our human experiment, like what human is ever going to be consistent? But I didn't fully appreciate that multiple things can be true at once. Like I can be inconsistent, but that doesn't mean that my business has to be inconsistent, right? And so starting to really embrace that, And part of this process as well of the automation piece is what templates or things like that, for different content types can you create so you're not starting from scratch each time? So if you are going to create carousels, like can you spend the time when you are feeling more energized, or this perhaps can be something that's outsourced, creating like 4 different versions of carousels. So you can just put your information into those templates and be able to eliminate any resistance between having the insight and putting the information out there. And I probably should have mentioned this at the very beginning of this episode, but you don't need permission to share your insights, right? Like that is not the same thing as an invitation, like waiting for an invitation to guide, right? Like you do not need permission to share the things that you are passionate about, to identify the gaps that you are seeing in your industry, in your marketplace, the things that you're observing with client work. Like you don't need, like we want that from you, right? Like you don't need to wait for the invitation to share, right? To share your insights, to share your observations, to share the things that you are learning. Okay. And I think that's a really important point that I find myself repeating a lot to my projector clients is like, give us your expertise, like tell us what you're missing. Especially for me as a sacral, the relationship between sacral and projector I think is really special. And I want to know what you see that I am missing, right? You're here to guide, you're here to illuminate, and so while yes, your strategy is to wait for invitations to work with specific people and to guide people in that way, you could absolutely share the insights and wisdom that genuinely excites you, right? Like recognition follows resonance. So if you're excited about something, if something is resonating with you, share it. And all of this builds the foundation for those organic invitations to work together that we spoke about in the Projector sales episode. And I really invite you to contemplate these episodes, hand in hand, and the rest of the episodes that we're covering around, human design and business strategy, because I think especially for projectors, it's so important. Like I cringe a little bit inside, like I die a little bit inside when I start working with a projector client that has not considered the sales ecosystem in this way. Because if there is a specific type where we want to create this ecosystem approach, it's projectors, because otherwise you're going to find yourself stepping outside of your design in order to find clients. And we don't want that for you. Like that's not a vibe. We want you rich and well-rested, right? You can also DM me soul on Instagram at jazzjervis_, or you can grab the link below to get access to Selling Soulfully, by the way. That is my mini course that expands on the 4-step sales system and creating that ecosystem with sales so that you are creating more of those organic and natural invitations. And basically how to align, your strategies around sales, around content creation, around how you are bringing people into your business, even how you are closing the sale and delivering, how to apply that for you as a projector. So let's really quickly focus on the practical implementation of this. So as I mentioned, you can schedule sort of like weekly study sessions or on whatever cadence feels good for you, but just making sure that you bring that, I guess, devotion and reverence to that process, right? Like how are you actually documenting those insights, right? So you might create a really simple content bank system, like even just a Google document where you're capturing ideas. Then focus on creating 2, maybe 3 pieces of substantial content per week rather than daily posts. You might do one long form. So you might have one blog post or one podcast episode, and that is broken down into 2 or 3 posts on your other, content platforms. Or it might be the other way around. You might find that your expertise is in breaking things down into like sort of more micro topics. So you might have 3 posts for Instagram and you start there, and then you maybe have, a longer sort of like masterclass each month or something that is a little bit more in depth. Whatever is, suitable for your energy and feels aligned for you, but really embracing this idea that like, I'm here for depth, like I'm here to identify what other people are missing, right? Use that penetrating insight to create frameworks, to identify patterns, to, tell people where things are breaking down for them. Then build templates for your favorite content types. So even if you are writing a blog, even if you are doing regular podcasts, right? Like set up an AI project that outlines exactly how you like to create content, right? If you like to script your podcast episodes, or maybe you write a blog and you've got multiple different examples of that, like upload that, so that it has that context for your expression and your voice, and create a process where maybe you actually voice message out all of your insights. And because you've got that beautiful template, like I do that for newsletters, it's still my idea. It's my creativity. I personally don't use AI to ideate. I use it to support me to take my ideas. I'm a manifesting generator, so sometimes I move quickly. It's helpful for me to take that idea and then put that into a framework or a script or whatever it might be that is going to, to support me to execute that as quickly as possible. do that for yourself, right? Like, how can you make your process more efficient so that you can be more rested? And remember, if content creation is feeling draining for you, like, look at that, like, pay attention to that. Maybe you are forcing frequency over depth, and there's space for you to start to let go of some of the traditional business rules that are probably built for generators and not for you as a projector. And remember from episode 1 about the complete sales ecosystem for projectors, this is just one part. It's just one part of your entire ecosystem approach. Like, I do not want you to just be focused on content creation, right? Like, I want you to be able to zoom out and see the bigger picture of how am I bringing people in? How am I educating them on what I do? How am I closing the sale? How am I delivering? Like, what is the bigger ecosystem? If you haven't watched that episode, please go and do that, especially for you as a projector. It is going to also give you that exhale with content. Like, the amount of times that I've said to a client, you don't feel like you can rest because you don't have any strategies to support that rest. Like, it's all well and good for people to say, regulate your nervous system and rest more. But if you don't have business strategies to support that, then every time you rest, you won't make money. So you're probably not creating a very good relationship with rest, right? So the key for you as a projector is creating content from that insight, right? Rather than I have to create content, right? It comes from your study. It comes from your observations. And when you prioritize your natural study process and focus on depth over frequency, your content becomes a really powerful tool for attracting the right recognition and invitations, right? It starts to become like a really important part of that sales ecosystem because, as I mentioned before, as a sacral, like, I want to know your wisdom, right? Like, I want to know what you're seeing that I am missing. Just make sure that you are sharing it in a way that sustains and energizes you rather than depleting you.